Yo dudes, for the past 5 years, I've been working as a software engineer. I recently changed jobs and wanted to make a video talking about how I got into all three firms. I started out as a new grad at Twitch on the ads brand safety team, then worked at Spotify on the ad serving team, and now I'm starting out at Meta on the infrastructure team for feature configs. I'll talk about how I studied for each and how my methods evolved over time. Oh yeah, a good bit of this will literally just be about how I lived life during interview practice. Okay, we start. So back in 2020, I was wrapping up my last internship at Lyft. Unfortunately, due to COVID, the economic situation for ride-sharing apps wasn't too hot, and the number of return offers was limited. This guy was not selected for the return offer, so it was off to the new grad job search for me. Thankfully, a lot of service-based companies were power hiring. This is important context for certain tech company headcount adjustments coming up in a couple of years. I was lucky enough to interview at a few places, so got a great amount of practice in. I had my last semester of university too. The workload happened to be low, and I was kind of just looking to pass, so I basically studied for interviews for 4 to 5 hours a day and just showed up to class. To start our training, I did some top questions for each coding category, a few questions in array, binary search, trees, and other topics, just so I had a solid foundation to work on. I thought simulating an interview as often as possible will give me a better chance on the real thing. So I did 2 to 3 mock interviews off of lead code each day. I tried to finish the 4 question on-site simulations in under an hour or so. The result? Well, sometimes it works, and sometimes the hard questions has me stun locked for the allotted hours. I also made a set of studying notes on Evernote for major topics and handy-dandy code snippets like Python lambdas that I could use later. Speaking of Python, that was my interview coding language of choice, mostly because a lot of the work is just done for you. I also had a daily diary thing where I wrote down what I did and what I can improve on for today. Whether training didn't go well or I committed a crime during an interview, I think that helped reduce repeated mistakes. I think interviews are just dice rolls that you stack the odds in your favor as much as possible. Better training gives you better odds, better health and sleep gives you better odds, and so on. So you buff stack as much as possible and roll as much as possible. Eventually, it has to be the case that you become employed. Maybe you start out at 0.01% chance to pass, then 1%, then 10%. I've had this mentality since I started training for interviews in 2018, and it's worked reasonably well so far. System design was rare for new grads back then, so I only ended up watching a couple videos when a final round was sure to have them. So with Twitch specifically, I just applied online. I didn't actually expect to get a reply, but I got insanely lucky. I don't know if the recruiter misclicked reject or something, and I got an online assessment from them. To maximize my chances of answering it right, I checked the lead code discussion threads and Glassdoor to see sample questions. Well, those questions weren't really related to what I got, but I did the online assessment with every second, solved each of the test cases, and wrote a mini essay for each line of code, so there was no way I'd get disqualified. Thankfully, the paranoia paid off because I got the hiring manager or HM round shortly after. The HM actually ended up being my skip manager, who was really nice in the meeting and talked about the ads work Twitch was doing and asked me some basic behavioral questions. I remember answering one where I think really turned the interview in my favor. She basically asked me why I wanted to work at Twitch. I said something along the lines of I grew up with video games and wanted to give back to the medium that has given me so much. Looking back, this sounds kind of unhinged, but it was unironically 100% true, and I think it worked so that was pretty cool. I thought the HM round went pretty well, but apparently it was so juiced that the recruiter said the HM let me skip the next technical phone screen and go straight to the on-site. Dude, I was actually elated. I thought I was about to ascend. I remember Twitch was like a dream company for me back then and throughout university. I sweated as much as possible for this one. I scoured the web for every documented case of Twitch engineering interviews, practiced every possible question, and read every piece of Twitch career blog I could get my hands on. I remember looking at the architecture exposition for the Twitch San Francisco office. I was so excited. There's like 6 Twitch tag questions on LeetCode. So I made the assumption that questions from Amazon might be similar, so did more or less every mock interview LeetCode had on Amazon. I assumed completely wrong. This was actually hours down the toilet, bro. The day came for the onsite. I remember watching like 3 hours of Tyler 1's League of Legends streams the night before. I guess it was kind of for motivation. I think the new KDA music video came out at the same time too, so that was kind of neat. I remember thinking to myself, I'll buy every skin if I get the job. The onsite had a system design round, 2 coding rounds, and 1 manager behavior round. So the onsite started out like a comedy. I plugged my mic in incorrectly, and the first interviewer couldn't hear me. I had to IT support my 8-year-old blue snowball mic to get it to work, and rejoined the Google Meets real quick. Looking back, it was actually a nothing burger, but 2020 me felt like 6 versions of fear during those minutes. I got really lucky with that first system design round since it was based around the heartbeat protocol that I just happened to have read about. The person also played a lot of games and asked me about worlds and which team I liked. I said G2 because their voice comms were really funny. The first coding round, I actually don't remember what happened. The other one was pretty fun because it was basically coding Hearthstone card packs. Thankfully, I still had an idea of how the game worked, so it was very good. HM round was nice too, straightforward, and I didn't kaboom myself by saying anything weird. Then came the rancid wait. I think I had a resting heart rate of like 1,000 for the days I waited. Eventually, there was another offer I needed to make a decision on quickly, so I ended up calling my Twitch recruiter and asked if there was an update. He was like, yeah, there is, and checked the system. That silence probably would have killed me if I was like 20 years older. But thankfully, the universe itself was on my side that day, and dude told me I had an offer. We knew nothing about the numbers, but I was truly unemployed for that moment. Holy moly, brother, the high from that was probably enough to overdose an inanimate object. I remember screaming "F yeah" for like 30 seconds straight. My family thought I had an altercation with myself. But after I simmered down, it was all over. I can stop looking at leak code. For now, leak code is never truly over. I showed my parents, and they were just glad their son is not a NEET. I started planning my move to SF, which really just meant I looked at one apartment rental, thought looked good to me, and signed. Oh yeah, I did end up buying all 4 of the KDA skins too. I was released from study prison. I did nothing but Mythic plus dungeons in World of Warcraft and Genshin the entire day. I played games until 5 a.m. in the morning when the birds started chirping. Since it was COVID, I didn't leave the house for the entire 3 months or something until I was to start work. I was actually a drudge on society, but holy moly, that was some advanced living. It was divine. Oh yeah, Twitch onboarding was really funny. So they gave some free merch to new employees. The way that was done was through the Amazon official Twitch store. It turns out Amazon was coded to not allow free items, so they gave us these 99% off codes to buy some merch. I think I got some pants and a sweater, but knowing the site was coded that way was actually top tier comedy. Working at Twitch was very fun. The context was always games or streamer related, so it's really enjoyable having your main hobby and your work blend together. Most people played plenty of games and are into pop culture, so it's pretty easy to talk to people. There was, in fact, a Genshin Impact Slack channel. People can upload whatever emotes they wanted to the Slack, so I added the Tartaglia stare one. People could change their Slack names to whatever they wanted, so some people had like sentences instead of their names. There were weekly all hands every Thursday. A lot of the stuff is industry related, so we'd have sessions where people talk about WoW's Race to World First, or something big happening in GTA RP or Fortnite. It was a good dopamine hit every week. The brand safety team worked a lot on contextual targeting projects. The main goal was to ensure advertisers were comfortable putting their ads on live user-generated content, which helps bring up a lot of out-of-body experiences, like your manager discussing what we got to do next when the hot tub meta was in play. Okay, so that was Twitch, and this transitions very nicely to Spotify because Twitch lays me off in March 2023, so it was like fate that I went to Spotify next. Or maybe it was more like interest rates. So just before the layoff, we knew that it was happening from leaks and the execs. So to mentally prepare for doom, I just assume I'm getting laid off. It worked a little too well because I actually got laid off. Anyway, the plan was to get up to speed with interviewing in 2 weeks, then do daily training. For those 2 weeks, I did the Grind 75 questions, which would ramp someone up from easy to medium to hard lead code questions and covering all the major topics. It worked really well, so I'd easily recommend this one if you guys need to start preparing from zero. My days were just training and playing gacha games. My schedule looked something like this. I basically did this for 3 months and just slotted in interviews when they needed to happen. I had a strategy of not having back-to-back interviews just in case I get completely demolished one day. It doesn't affect the mental for the following one. It sort of shows here, but I'd alternate between system design and coding since more or less all final rounds for Software Engineers 2 had system design and I needed to prepare properly for them this time. I prepared as though each topic was a subject at school. I'd read the summary on grokking the coding interviews guide and would write notes based off of that. Here's a sample. For practicing questions, I'd watch these YouTube channels to see how to best answer them. I'd then do something like ask ChatGPT to ask me a system design interview question and I'd write down what I'd say. I'd ask the AI what I'd missed and learn from that. It works pretty well since I'm not tied to scheduling with asking people to mock me and the AI's advice is generally pretty good. Oh yeah, I'm not too sure how much this helped with getting into Spotify, but I legit ate the same meal every day. I still remember. It was like a protein bar in the morning, go to the gym, eat 2 oranges, and some high protein yogurt. Lunch 1 was chicken thigh and a romaine and tomato salad. Dinner was steak, in the sense that it was beef, not that it was well made, and some eggs. Then some protein shake. I did this because this was the collection of all dishes I knew how to make and not give myself food poisoning. So you see the 2 lunches. This was very helpful because it kept me alive and well fed and gave me ample time to watch a monstrous amount of anime. Each 30-minute lunch segment was enough for 2 episodes. 2 shows I really recommend to help with the doom and gloom environment were Mob Psycho 100 and Sound Euphonium. Actually peak fiction. Dude, there's this one scene in Euphonium that actually injected pure power into my mental. So the show is about kids in high school in band trying to grind their way into a national competition. There's a scene during a preliminary match where you see the music sheets with what the kids' friends wrote in one another's books to motivate one another. Very wholesome. There's this one girl, and on her sheet, there's just the word national written across the entire page. Holy moly, I got shivers looking at that. I was like, okay, yeah, I gotta pass every interview now. I've just bear witness to peak human performance. So even though there was a lot of training, it honestly wasn't too bad. I never felt fatigue or anything since I'd alternate material and had a good number of breaks. This is kind of wacky, but because I played so many gacha games, there's usually a new update every week I can look forward to. The dopamine from the successful polls really helped offset getting folded like a lawn chair during interviews. So with Spotify itself, the process was kind of funny. I actually applied to a full stack role, so a front end focused role. I haven't done front end except fraudulently during hackathons. So when the recruiter called me for a phone screen, she was like, "Do you want to do a back end role instead?" I was like, "Yeah, thank heavens, yeah." She's like, "There's a back end role on ads that isn't posted yet, but we'll submit you for that." Go to the recruiter, truly. There was actually another recruiter round where the guy was talking about how he worked in London and Madrid and a couple of other places thanks to Spotify's work from anywhere policy. That sounded kind of sick. If I left the house more often, it'd be an insane benefit. The first phone screen that followed went pretty well. It was a higher leak code easy, but dude was happy with what I said. He then asked a question which was actually explain DNS. So that was A-okay because the grokking the coding interview guy told me exactly what to say in this case. Since the phone screen went well, Spotify sent me the request for an onsite. The onsite had a preparation call, which was really nice with the recruiter going over what would be asked. Somewhat standard interview with a coding round, an HM round, and a system design round. The unique thing Spotify asked is an on-call simulation. The simulation has the interviewers walking the candidate through a real on-call issue and prompting the candidate to ask questions and for pieces of information to uncover the cause and resolution of the outbreak. I did what I did for Twitch and found every possible Spotify system design and coding questions possible. To be honest, the on-call one, I think I just kind of hoped for the best. Before the actual interview, I listened to music to pre-buff my mental before going in. I straight up watched the entire Inherit the Flame cinematic before starting. It actually gave me a 5-hour pure optimism buff. It was actually unlosable. Of course I had to listen to Till I Collapse as well. Either I'm employed or I don't know, I guess my skeleton disappears or something. The onsite went pretty well. The coding question was straightforward. The system design I was comfortable with since it was ads domain. The HM round was with my actual manager, who was a nice guy, so also straightforward. The on-call sim was a mix of me giving actual answers and saying very incorrect things. There was another nice and cool 2-week wait for a monster man amount of fear during the decision-making process. Thankfully, once again, reality blessed my bones and I got an email from my recruiter that she had good news for me. The offer came and once again, I was screeching with excitement. This was after the call. Screeching during the call would have been like super weird. Spotify was great as well. A lot of music related context, and the work I was doing at the time was upgrading our ad server to be ready for a transition off of the Google Ad Manager. Everyone I worked with was very smart and nice. The company had really great work-life balance, and the office was in one of the World Trade Center buildings, so it had great views and really nice amenities. I took a few friends to the office like it was a field trip. Living in New York was fun too. There's way more gacha game collabs and it was nice seeing weather again. So now the latest job, the raid boss, the metaverse, the Mark Zuckerberg. I started the preparation arc again March of 2024. It was more focused this time since I needed to do my job and train at the same time. I'd spend 1 to 2 hours after work doing the daily lead code and the topic I needed the most work on NeetCode's roadmap. For system design, I used these YouTube channels mostly. Hello Interview really saved a lot of time since their guides walked through a mock interview with great detail and gave job level specific advice. I really recommend watching their stuff if you're looking to prepare well for assistant design. Meta itself was a very straightforward process. I applied online and got a recruiter contact. We set up a phone screen later and it was actually too funny. Dude, the Meta coding interviews were like speed runs. There's 2 lead code mediums you gotta do in 45 minutes and there's no running the code. It's the interviewer believing whether it works from you running through an example. The first question was alright. The second one was a matrix traversal question that I was firing all 12 brain cells to solve. Thankfully, after dropping my spaghetti multiple times, it worked. I honestly thought I fumbled hard and failed, but I don't know man, maybe the interviewer misclicked the fail and passed me instead because I got the onside afterwards. We readied the sweat fest once again, and I did the majority of the meta mock interviews on LeetCode. I said most because I kind of got slapped around by the hard questions. I also started timing myself because that 2 questions in 45-minute thing needs to happen 2 times for the final round. Also, Netflix really helped me out here. There were 2 great shows during my final rounds, Dan the Dan and Blue Box. Actually, outstanding fiction. Don't watch episode 1 of Dan the Dan with your parents. Thank me later, bro. You guys should go spin up Netflix and go watch these afterwards. The mental I got from watching these 2 shows truly carried me across the finish line. The onsite was actually pretty smooth. 2 coding rounds, 1 system design, and 1 HM round. The coding speedrun went really well and I was able to solve the questions in time. System design was good as well. Thank you, Hello Interview. The sequencing of a system design interview they gave probably saved me from calamity. HM interview was good too. Thankfully, your guy had a cool work story for each competency they were looking for. There was a break between interviews and I was somehow very calm through these. I guess I've been fist fighting the interviews for a while and started getting used to onsites. A week after the interview, dreams were constructed into reality. My recruiter sent me an email titled IC4 offer. Dude, this was like 5 years in the making. Back in 2019, I actually fumbled a Facebook internship interview. The interview was so bad and stank that the interviewer started playing Pokemon Go when I couldn't solve the question. I knew then I had to get in, bro. I had to. Losing to Pikachu would have been an insane PTSD. There was a team matching process and I tried speed running it and ended up in Menlo Park on an infrastructure team. But yeah, offer came, negotiated with another FANG offer I had on hand. Now this dude has moved back to Bay Area and ready to become a meta. I'll probably make another video about how meta is and what has happened. Okay, so now that you've reached the end, I hope this was kind of funny or somewhat helpful. For the software athletes that want a comprehensive list of what I did to prepare, here is the comprehensive strategy I used for preparing. This is basically the copy and paste I send to friends when they ask. So you want to cover all your foundational algorithms and data structure. You want to get very good at things like arrays, binary trees, linked lists, etc. When I relearned for interviews, I first followed this list, grind 75, since it goes over common tropes for interviews and goes over the major concepts. I then target concepts I needed more work on with this list from NeetCode since it breaks it down by category. I recommend a LeetCode subscription since you can access log questions and some of those are very good. For practicing for an interview, I'd want to get to a point where I can complete these mock interviews from LeetCode very quickly. I wouldn't do random questions since it might not cover all concepts. It's good to supplement foundational learnings with the daily LeetCode questions, as well as doing bi or weekly contests to code under pressure. Doing mock interviews is technically good. I didn't end up doing them. I'd just do 1 to 2 questions a day where I'd say out loud what I'd say in a real interview. For system design, I looked at the free stuff on grokking the system design interview. These free channels are pretty good for system design. I tried to learn each topic, CDN, database, caching, etc. like a chapter in university. I'd use the grokking resource as well as asking ChatGPT for a definition to make notes with. To practice system design, I'd look for a question like design Instagram and write out the API DB schema and ask ChatGPT how it looked. It usually gives a pretty good critique. If you have a specific company in mind, you can search their questions on LeetCode's problem set. Glassdoor has questions as well. If you can read Chinese, you can read 1.3 acres for questions too. You can read the tech blogs for different companies as well to see the best practices like Netflix, Uber, engineering blogs to see how they solve hard questions. Okay, now the video is over. I hope you guys all become employed and make trillions in your days. I'm gonna go back to talking about anime in the next video, probably. All right, see you later, dudes.